episode 54. 54 weeks. I've been right here talking about all things life and music, which I enjoy talking about. And it seems I may have a small audience for that. So this hat, I started talking about this hat, and then I went off air. I love this hat. I try to wear this all through December, going out about around town, and I said because I'm an attention seeker, but that's not necessarily the case. I think it's fun to go out and about, and this hat will make people laugh. It makes them smile. Sometimes it starts conversations with total strangers, like, where did I get this? I think, if I remember correctly, Mary found this at a thrift store, like Goodwill or something. So obviously somebody had discarded it and didn't want it, and I said, I'll wear that goofy hat, because there's just so much junk going on in our world, and Christmas time is a good time to connect with your friends and family, and forget about all the junk that is so divisive. I woke up this morning to about 23 or so, maybe 25 text messages and a bunch of Facebook messages and comments about how much people really liked the new Midline song and the video. Just, it's them expressing how much they like it and loved it was great. And so my heartfelt thanks to that. Like, seriously, I laugh, but any of us musicians, when we put something out there, I think we try to tell ourselves, well, if nobody likes it, we did it for us, which I guess to some degree is true. But when you're creating something, this art, you hope that other people appreciate it at whatever level you're doing that. And so it's nice to see that people appreciate that. And all my musician friends out there know that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's a constant work in progress, I guess you could say. You try to write really great songs to the best of your ability, and you want to record that and hope that it sounds great, and then you hope people appreciate it, and then in some small way you hope in another way that people appreciate it enough that it leads to the next cool thing that you're going to be working on, and maybe there's some money that flows your way a little bit. Merry Christmas, Gary, to you too. Are you still in Nashville, or are you back? I think you just went there. I think that was the case. Yes, I'm wearing my goofy hat to spread holiday cheer, just like Buddy the Elf. So yes, the new Midline song, You're Home. Cool. We keep threatening to get together to have coffee, and maybe that'll come true someday. That would be great. Hey, Jim. Yeah, so Gary, maybe, you know what? Maybe we should just set a date. I think I've got Friday morning pretty free, and I would be happy to buy you your weird, what do you have? Oatmeal milk? Oat milk? I don't know how that works. How do you milk an oat? It's just like that scene in Meet the Fockers. I've got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me? So, yes, our heartfelt thanks from me, and I'm sure the rest of the band would really express their gratitude for everybody that joined us on the live chat when we premiered the video last night on YouTube, and then all the shares that it's been having, and all of that just really helps create traction for the band. And it I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but it really helps the algorithms to get. And we're reignited this band. We were kind of dead in the water for a few years, and there were moments where we thought, are we going to continue doing this? And then we finally made our plan and stuck to that plan and went for that. And if anybody had joined me and Anthony on our Facebook Live on the Midline page last Saturday night, Anthony said something, and I screenshotted it. So hopefully I'll repeat it exactly how he said it. But I think it really made an impact. He said, "If you know where you want to go, just go there." So that's an Anthony Fagiano quote. If you know where you want to go, just go there. And that's stuff I've been talking about off and on this show for the past year is, following your dreams and making a plan and sharing my opinions about how all that works. But yeah, so excuse me. We had made a plan as a band that Jim Royal, good morning to you, sir, dude. I hope you're doing great. So we made a plan. We wrote this song, Ghost, and we wanted the best sounding song, and so we got the right person to mix it, and we made a really cool video, and we had Scott Alexander from Dishwalla had helped us put the finishing touches on that, but with his involvement, and it was like taking the paddles to the band, like getting the heartbeat going again. And so now we got all excited, and then the next step was the result of that was to hopefully find a bass player who wanted to be in the band, who fit in with us personality wise, and who was a pro level musician and all of those things. And we found that in James Lancaster, who, all of us who know James here, especially in the local community, know exactly what I'm talking about. There's just a lot of great qualities that come with that guy, and it fit in with our MO, so to speak, perfectly. So we got Onward out there, and again, the best product we could put out, this video and all that. So our heartfelt thanks go out to everybody that supported that so far. And if you haven't seen it, please go out there, Midline Official Band on YouTube or our Facebook page. You can't see it on the Facebook page yet. There's just a link to YouTube, which Facebook tries to squash YouTube links. Unless there's enough traction out there, then it might go, okay, this is engaging people. So James Harrison is here, my buddy. If you believe you can or can't, either way, you're right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's that whole mindset thing, right, James? Like, it's just like I said, Anthony says, if you know where you want to go, then just go there. I know that my mom she might still do this, but, I think we all go through periods where we read like self-help books or books that are going to inspire us. And, I'm in the process of doing just that exact thing now. But my dad had made this remark, like, if you want to turn on the light, just turn it on. You don't need to read a book about it. Like, almost like there's like a procrastination involved with reading the self-help books. Like, what you need to do, just do it. So I've always remembered that. I think sometimes we make things more complicated than it needs to be. But yeah, I think that all ties together. Exactly. So whether you can or can't, either way, you're right. So if you say, I can't do that, then yeah, you're right. If you say, I can do that, yeah, you're right. You're going to figure that out either way. So again, our heartfelt thanks with the whole Midline deal. And the other thing that's, it wasn't like we were promoting a message necessarily, but Anthony and JB wrote these lyrics to Onward as a reflection of people who go through addiction. This one specifically like an addiction to alcohol, but this could be an addiction to anything. It doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs, but the chorus says, I don't remember you, I don't remember me, the emptiness closes in and then let go again. So I think, I'm going to just scratch the surface of that real quick because I got a lot of talk that I want to say, but if you yourself or you've witnessed people near you that have had some kind of addiction, you see how dark that can become, and they don't recognize you and they don't recognize themselves, and getting to that point where they finally have to realize that there's a way out of that. And so the bridge of that song is the coming out of that fog and moving onward. So that's basically what the song is about, but the video is kind of a live performance video, like from a band rehearsal type setting. And thank you to the Avamore Homeowners Association and the Howell Station Event Center for letting us get into that big barn and film that. And just the way the light was coming through that day, the conditions were great for filming a music video. So thank you to those guys up there. It's, again, it's like, where can we film this video? I don't know. And you start brainstorming. Well, what about this place? Well, what do you do to get that place? Well, you start by sending an email. And that's as simple as that became. So Midline, yes. Greg, it's a great song. Very midline sounding. I know that sounds silly, but it felt very authentically you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think I know exactly what you mean, because Anthony and I talked about this when we were on the Midline Facebook page on Saturday night, but we've talked about it just in the band. Like, Anthony is the only remaining original member of Midline. And he told me, he goes, I feel like you're the original drummer just because I've been around for so long. The band's been around since 1990, so that's 33, crawling up on 34 years of this band and its history. And I've been in the band for 27 or 28 of those years. So yeah, I've been around for a while. But even though there's been member changes along the way, and we've discussed this too, it's not like a fast revolving door of people. There was like me and Anthony and Scott and Stymie. That was the thing that was together for a long, probably the longest nucleus of the band. But even though, now we have JB and we have James, we still sound like Midline. It doesn't sound way off, and I think a lot of that has to do with Anthony's voice, but it's the guitar writing, it's the music, all of that still sounds like us. So yes, Greg, I think that's a great compliment. So thank you for that. All right, moving onward. I had started writing these descriptions about what I wanted to do, and I scratched this out because I think it's going to all tie in. But I was talking about, like, where we are today is a result of decisions that we made a long time ago, not necessarily decisions we made yesterday. So let's say that you're going through the drive-thru at Starbucks right now. That was a decision you made recently, right? Maybe you decided last night, okay, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to stop at Starbucks. So I'm not talking about those situations. I'm like, where you are with your life. Like, where I am with my life at this very moment as I sit here talking is a result of decisions that I started making 3 years ago. And now here I am. It's the same with Midline. Like, we made a decision. Are we going to continue this thing, or are we just going to fold it up? And we made a decision. We are going to do this thing, and that started about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. So now we finally have all the wheels spinning again. It's really cool. So I had to think about, not only am I sitting where I am today because of decisions I made 3 years ago, I'm sitting where I am today and doing what I'm doing because of a decision that was made when I was in 8th grade. So that would have made me 13. I think I was 13 years old. Let's see, I got to go backwards in math. So 17, 16, 15, 14, 13. Yeah, because I graduated high school when I was 17. So this was 8th grade. I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because I think it's really, really important. And see, Gary's scheduling our coffee date. 12:20 coffee date, Starbucks, Alverson's Eagle and Amity, 7:30 a.m. Fred Fisher Podcast Christmas party. Hey, that's a great idea, Gary. You want to be my guest? we could go live right there in the Starbucks lobby. A special episode. I'm willing to do it, but most importantly, I just want to hang out and catch up. That would be super cool. All right, so I'm sitting where I am because of a decision that happened when I was 13. And I wanted to bring this up because yesterday was also my dad's birthday. I think he's 72. Pretty sure my dad's 72. And I always have people go, your dad, but you said your dad died when you were 6. Yes, my dad did die when I was 6. My mom got remarried shortly thereafter. So my stepdad, Tim, has been my dad for 40. How old am I? 640. My stepdad's been dad to me like 45 years. So I just call him dad. That's been my life. It interrupted the story. So when I was in the 8th grade, I didn't have a drum set yet. I had a snare drum that my parents had rented from a music store, and I had a metal desk clamp that I used for a cymbal. So in the 8th grade, we were doing a band concert. I don't remember what time of year it was. I just know it was in the 8th grade. It was like a Tuesday or Wednesday night. And after the concert, my parents had seen this progression and this passion that I had developed for playing the drums. So my parents just did what most parents would ask. They asked my band teacher, when do you think we should get him a drum set? And I told the story before. I was like so excited. My parents were now seeking information from somebody that was an authority in all of this, a teacher. He looked right at my parents and very seriously, with his hands on his hips, said, I would not buy him a drum set until he graduates high school. This is going to be a huge distraction in his life. This is a bad idea. Don't do it. There was more said than that, but that's what I heard. And I'm standing there like wind completely out of my sails, really deflated. And the way that the tone that he used in this, now, again, this is a teacher, people, telling my parents not to encourage this drumming. This is a big distraction, that's a bad idea. And I felt like I had done something wrong. And that really upset me because I wasn't one of those kids who caused trouble. I wasn't one of those kids who hated my parents in my late teens and my early 20s and none of that stuff. I wasn't that kid. So that happened. I was in the backseat of the car, tears in my eyes. And I don't really remember if my parents had said anything directly to me after that, other than when I got home, we went to bed. I got up the next day, went to school, blah, 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 moping around. And then after school, when I got home, my dad came home from work and in his typical fashion said, told my sisters, do these extra chores. And he looked right at me and he said, go get the crap out of the back of the truck. So it was just another chore. So I'm, still moping and sad from what my teacher had said the night before. And I go out, in the back of my dad's pickup is a drum set. This is the very next day after my teacher said not to. And I was so elated. I was extremely happy. I started crying with excitement. Brought this drum set in and set it up, immediately started going crazy, playing. Now, I will say that, my dad didn't do that intentionally out of spite for my teacher. I think maybe you could call it a divine intervention, if you would. But he'll always watch the paper for estate sales and auctions and things like that, just I think for fun, maybe. And he saw there was an estate sale and it mentioned a drum set in there. And so my dad went to this auction and bought this drum set. Now, it wasn't pretty. It was pretty raggedy um, drum set. It wasn't anything, you know, of quality, but it was mine. And it was so cool. I know that I saved up my lawn mowing money and I bought new drum heads for it and eventually new cymbals and those kind of things. And so I've been doing some interviews recently with different drummer podcasts and things. And so that story has been coming up a lot. And then that kind of tied into yesterday was my dad's birthday. And in addition to that, it was like the release of the new Midline song. It was like, and they talked about this on the Drummers Education Connection podcast 2 weeks ago when I told this story. They thought, man, that was such a cool thing that my dad did, because look at where I am now today. Like, had my dad and my mom, taken the advice of this teacher and said, okay, we're not going to, that's it. We're going to follow the advice of the expert. The advice of the expert. I'll say it again. The advice given to my parents by an expert was terrible advice because of where I am sitting right now at this very moment talking. Like, had my parents followed that advice, I might still be miserable working a day job doing something. I don't know, and I don't care because that decision my parents made just caused a whole chain reaction for where I am with my life now. So just because somebody's like went to school to be a teacher doesn't mean they're good at teaching. I mean, this guy, he was so negative all the time in so many ways. I cannot believe that he was allowed to be a teacher, really. And and that's not an isolated case. I don't believe. There's a ton of teachers out there, and this is, please don't get me wrong. I am not cutting down teachers who go to school to become a teacher because, and that's what they want to do and that's their passion. Those people who actually that's what they want to do in their passion, it's reflected in their students. If we got teachers out there teaching our kids and they don't have any passion for what they're doing and it's just that's the result you get out of your students is nah. So I was just thinking about that a lot because these recent interviews I've done and talking about my first drum set. Yesterday was Dad's birthday, the release of the new Midline single. Like, I would not be involved in any of that had my dad not gone ahead and bought a drum set the day after my teacher said no. That was just, it's pretty amazing stuff. So, I go back to that question asking you, like, where you're sitting right now at this moment today is a result of some decision that you made 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. We make these decisions and our life is set on some kind of a course. And, even though I've had all this great stuff happen, I still have a dream of stuff that I want to continue to do. And so that's why me and the producer are getting more and more and more, condensing our focus on certain things. And even that being the case, the producer and I still butt heads occasionally. But so my heartfelt thanks to my parents, to my dad for doing that thing that caused a chain reaction of things to happen in my life, to follow music. Because once I had that drum set, it was just like I was going like this, and then I immediately turned and went that way. It was just like I was all in, and I have always been all in with drumming. Just like it just never stopped. ever, ever. And so, like this heartfelt thanks, I wanted to tie in to one more thing, is because I'm a teacher and I teach drum lessons, and I have no formal education in being a teacher. But is that necessary for what I'm doing? No, it's not. My love of music and understanding of music is what's necessary to be a teacher, and a willingness to do so. And I have students that on average will stay with me taking lessons 3 to 4 years. I have one student who's approaching being with me for 9 years, and it's it's incredible. He's an incredible drummer. He started when he was 10. He's almost 19. It's you know, people are connected through things. My high school band director, I've said this before, was like one of the most influential people in my life outside of my parents, because he was the guy that replaced the Mr. Negative, don't buy him a drum set teacher. Yeah, that's just like, it left its mark. Can you tell? It left its mark. So yesterday I was teaching, and my first student of the day that came in, he does hour lessons every week, and he's been struggling. He plays okay, but he's been struggling with some timing things, especially. So this is, if you're a musician out there, rhythm and timing is important. He was struggling with this eighth notes and triplet exercise in stick control. So you're playing straight eights into triplets, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and keeping that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and he'd play the eighth notes correctly, but as soon as he got to the triplet eighth notes, he would really speed up, so the bass drum would go 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1. Like, no, we're gonna keep that steady. So brought him over here, set him down on the pad, and we went to work. So he was a little disappointed at the moment. You could just tell in his face and how he was talking that it's like, oh man, I got a lot of work to do. How am I going to get? And it was becoming very cold and clinical and sterile, and no life to it, So if you imagine stark walls and a concrete floor and bright, annoying fluorescent lighting, and like that was kind of like the atmosphere that it felt like. It didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel like it didn't feel organic. So I just got this book sent to me by Rick Stojak, and he was one of the guys on the Drummers Education Connection podcast. And those guys all said, oh, we're going to send you our books. So he sent this to me, and I started going through it. But that's not the main reason I'm bringing it up. But just the way my student was talking was very like just monotone and really just not like that. And so I wanted to just grab something that he could read, just one sentence, and see if we could. In my mind, I was thinking, like, how can we take this sentence, it's just words on a page, and breathe life into this sentence? So in Rick's book, under acknowledgments, this is like, there's a foreword, and then now there's an acknowledgement. So this is just one sentence. I told my student, I said, I want you to read this to yourself, and then when you're done reading it, I want you to read it out loud. Here's the sentence, and here's how he said it. My heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people who have made this book possible. And he looked at me and I said, read it again. So he read it again. And I said, listen to the words that you're saying. Like, don't just read these words and that's the end of it. Like, what did you even remember from what you just said? And this was like an interesting thing. And as we got into it, I was making a realization of myself and how this teaching process was happening. And he said, I don't understand what this has to do with drumming. And I said, it has everything to do with drumming because we're going to breathe life into this sentence. And it was just random, and it just made a big impact, I think, for both of us at that time. And I said, you're reading it in a way as how you're drumming this exercise in stick control. Very just jaggedy, there's no flow to what you're saying. So again, he read, my heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people who have made this book possible. So now he's read it several times. So now he's feeling more comfortable in how he's reading it. The words are connecting better. It's less jaggedy. It's less chopped up. So then I had him read it again. And he goes, my heartfelt thanks go out. Just this motion that he made when he said, my heartfelt thanks goes out. So he put his hand on his heart, and as he read the word out, he brought his hand out. And I said, ooh, there it is. Listen to what you just did. He's like, what? What? I said, listen to how you're reading it now. I said, do it again. He goes, my heart. No, I said, no, with the actions this time. And I said, listen to what you're reading. You said my being you. Like, internalize this. This is Rick Stojak talking, but make this you. This is you talking. So it's my heartfelt thanks. What kind of thanks? Heartfelt. I said, it's not like somebody at McDonald's just handed you your large fry and you said, thanks. Like, you just you just had this transaction. It's like, thanks, you're out of there. No, your heartfelt thanks. And I was realizing as this thing I was making up on the spot was really starting not only connect to him, but was connecting to me with everything that was going on. Like I was think like my whole day in the back of my mind, I was thinking like, is it 7:30 yet? Because we want to share this new song, this new midline song. And then as I was reading this, I was thinking about my own gratitude towards my bandmates and my gratitude towards the people who like the music, and the gratitude I had that I'm a full-time drummer for a living. All of these things were culminating. It was my dad's birthday. It made me thinking about the first drum set, my heartfelt things. So like all this stuff was like coming together. It was really cool. So I said, now read it again, but like really internalize what you're saying. And he said, my heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people. Then we discovered the word dear. What kind of people? Dear. People who are important to us, people who are close to us, people who mean something to us like deeply internally. So what kind of thanks? A heartfelt thanks. What kind of people? The dear people. So we're like really going like, I said, so I'm, the author of this book, Rick, didn't write this book overnight. There's, if you knew what this book was about, which I'm not going to get into, but there is so much time and energy that's put into something like this. Like, this is something that Rick was passionate about, that Rick put together, that he's invested all this time in making it make sense and flow and all of those kind of things. So the people who probably encouraged him in putting this book together are the dear people. And so this is where we're getting closer and closer to how this ties into drumming. So again, he said, now we've read this like 20 sometimes. He goes, my heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people who made this book possible. And I said, there it is. Do you see how you read that? You internalize it. Now you feel like you wrote that sentence. My heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people who made this book possible. Like, we don't even have to read all the words now. We memorize it, we internalize it so quickly. And he goes, wow, I feel really great right now. Like, and then he goes, Fred, this isn't about just drumming, is it? And I said, no, this is like life stuff, right? This is life stuff. And so, I mean, you're not going to really be able to tell what's happening here, but I've got, this is page 9 of Stick Control for any drummer out there, but this is, where's the beginning? Beginning. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so I had the metronome going, And I said, I want you to play this like you're reading this sentence, just like you read it. Like, you need to put your heart and soul into this exercise. This is a simple exercise. This is just for timing and everything, but can you make this exercise feel good? Can you make that happen? Turn on the metronome. I said, before you start playing, like, feel the time. It's like, okay, so he's feeling the time. And I said, before you even start playing, like, think about what you're going to do. Think about what it sounds like in your head. And he just sat there for a second and he closed his eyes and he played through it perfectly. Not only like perfectly in time, but it just like his whole body posture changed. He went from sitting like this to sitting up. The attack that he had in his hands hitting the pad was completely different. And he played through that. And when he got done, his eyes got really big. He's like, wow. And I said, did you hear how that sounded? He's like, yeah. I go, that's your heartfelt thanks. Like, so he goes, that's my battle cry now, is my heartfelt thanks. And I said, yeah, we're gonna have these little breakthrough moments. And it was a breakthrough moment for me just in that whole thing. Like, so I was really thankful not only to receive this book from Rick Stojak, but because I started going through it. I'm going to call Rick in a couple days because he wants to know what I think about it and wants to walk me through how he works out of it and what his thought process was behind it. But I can't wait to share this story with him. Like, my heartfelt thanks go out to all the dear people. And so I had that moment yesterday with my student and just watching the results that happened, like how different he played after like that 10-minute thing was just really incredible. So yeah, it was one of those moments, and he was like, that was like a spiritual moving thing. Like, there was just something inside me, he said, that just came out. And then we moved through the rest of the page, not flawlessly, but with way more enthusiasm, way more intention, way more appreciation for what we were doing. And he was so excited to practice. So it was so cool. And then one other short little story that I had with some students yesterday. One, I have a student who's 5. He started with me when he was 4. He understands really well. He's super excited mostly to be here, but he's a little kid, and he wants to do little kid things. And sometimes I have his attention for the whole lesson, and sometimes I have it for 5 minutes. And he's got a little brother who's 3 that, he comes along with mom. And so when they showed up yesterday, I didn't tell them the story that I had with my first student, but I was feeling good. It's at 7:30 yet. The new song's coming out. It was my dad's birthday. I was just thinking about the gratitude I had for him getting me that drum set. Like, I was thinking about where I am today. Like, all these things were connecting, and this heartfelt thanks just kept coming around. And so this mom shows up with her 2 little kids, and you can tell that she's a little frustrated, a little tired, a little overwhelmed, because little kids will do that to you. I have 4 boys. I've been through that process when they were little. And the kids, they were wound up tight. They were bouncing off the walls, and they were being a little sassy to their mom. And I said, all right, boys. And I clapped my hands really loud. And see, they don't know where the buttons are with me. So maybe that makes it a little easier. So mom came in and she sat down here, and the little brother wanted to play drums really bad. And so I made them both sit on stools and put drum pads in front of them, and I sat across from them, and I said, okay, boys, here's what we're going to do. And I went through a series of things where we had to be really quiet and put the sticks on our lap and wait, and I would give them instruction on what we were going to do, and then I would say, don't move. And they would sit really still, and then they would have a little outburst once in a while, and mom would start to get involved. And I said, and just as I was looking at the boys, I just calmly said, Mom, I got this. If I need your help, I'll let you know. And she's like, oh, okay. Like, as a parent, she felt like she needed to constantly be correcting behavior, which she was observing as being, uh, I don't know, maybe disrespectful or rude or out of hand. Like, this isn't proper behavior. I'm like, I've been through this. This is my world too. So, um, but anyway, the lesson went really, really well. It was totally off script from what I would normally do. And I could tell mom was overwhelmed, and she just kind of needed a break. So I involved both the boys in this, and we did something together, and they were really attentive. And when it was over, I said, "Okay, boys, I got my next student here," and they were leaving. And the next student's really young, and they kind of got to know each other. So they're out there laughing and stuff, and the mom, as she was getting ready to leave, she's like, "Thank you so much. You have a lot of patience." And I go, "You're welcome." She goes, "No, my heartfelt thanks." And I was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Like, I didn't tell her anything about this heartfelt thanks that I had, with the kind of got me a little bit. But it was just like, where'd that come from? Where did that come from? That was like, that's just divine intervention as far as I'm concerned, that happened. So yesterday was just this constant day of really cool things happening. And so after I had this experience, this whole my heartfelt thanks thing with my first student of the day, and then the little kids were a little later in the day, and then mom to say that was just like, whoa, God, you're talking to me right now, kind of a thing. It was like, whoa, it was just like, it was really pretty awesome. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Like, so, what's heartfelt thanks for you? And when I was on the Drummers Education Connection, I was sharing that story about this teacher who was so negative and so, like, I just felt like for some reason he had it out for me, and I can't be the only one. Like, here's a school, college, whatever degree he had, teacher that's working in our school system that's just being this way. And I hear stories about this from students today, you know, of teachers who act certain ways and say things. And so when I was telling the story on the Drummers Education Connection podcast, and told him about, that my teacher did, said those things, and that my my parents rallied against that, and then some, was, these guys are all drum teachers and recording artists and performers, all in their own right, with nice body of work and great resumes, and they were just blown away. And Jeremy Steinkohler goes, "Whoa, I just got chills," and they were saying, like, words matter, like what you say matters, and what you say and the impact that's going to have on somebody. Is it short term, or is it long term? Like, that teacher I had saying that to my parents, like I said before, made me feel like I had done something wrong, which wasn't the case, but that's how it made me feel, and I've never forgotten that. But my heartfelt thanks out to Dad. Happy birthday, Dad, for doing that for me. And my parents always supporting uh, my desire and my passion to play drums and to make music, and and they even had, I know that my parents had moments along the way where they're like, "Hey, this is great that you're doing this." Like, they kind of occasionally brought up the what if this doesn't work out scenario. And I've talked about this before in the past, like plan A and plan B. If you have plan B, you're most likely going to take plan B because it's the safe one. It's the, there's a Kenny Aronoff interview out there where he's said this in many interviews, is like, your passion will trump your intellect every time. So plan B is your intellect plan, and plan A is your passion plan. Like, how do you make the um, passion your thing? So that's where I was 3 years ago. Like, I have to make this passion thing my thing, um, so here I am. Here I am today from decisions that I made 3 years ago. Here I am today because of a decision my parents made when I was 13. Here I am from a decision that was made when I was 10, and I was impressed and enthusiastic by a guy that was drumming that became my first drum teacher. And all the drum teachers I've had in my life have been fantastic and very encouraging. James Harrison is on here, a drummer friend and mentor of mine. And I know that when I was looking at teaching drum lessons more seriously, which was probably 10 years ago, like doing that on the side and just having a handful of students, I called James and I for one, I said, is there room for another drum teacher in Boise? Because I respect James, and I know that James is a really great teacher, and he's had many students over decades. And I didn't want to be viewed as competition necessarily, but I really was seeking his advice. And we got together, and he shared all his thoughts on what worked for him and what didn't work for him, and sharing that information. And it was just really cool that you can reach out to somebody and they'll take time to answer your questions. And that's really as simple as it gets, right? Like, you want to know something? Okay, well, how do I find the answers? Well, reach out to those people that are doing what you want to do, and just ask questions. And that's simply what I did. So yeah, James, I see you said something here, but I closed my computer, but I'll catch up on that. So the first part of what you said is we all have somewhat of a blueprint we like to teach from, but one often has to adapt to reach a student that struggles. And then whatever else you said. Yeah, exactly. I think I know where you're going with that. Yeah. All of my students, there's very specific things I make all of them work on, because I think it's important information for them all to know. And then, but they're not all on the same path. They're not all in the same place on the timeline. So yeah, we have to adapt and customize all of those things, including uh, considering people's emotions, and what their life is like. And there's just so many things to consider. And that's kind of one thing that's exciting for me, is because every half hour I have another person walking in the door, and we're shifting gears and all of that stuff. So it's really, really, really great, which I'm sure you've experienced for decades. John Klein is here. Good morning, Fred and everyone. Great stories. Kind words are free. Why hold them back? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, guys, thank you for joining me today. I know that was a lot of stuff to talk about, but I'm like, I'm all excited about things. So there you go. Like, maybe let that resonate today or through the rest of the week, like your heartfelt thanks and the dear people to you. And if you can find a goofy hat to keep that holiday cheer going. It's funny. We've been driving through parking lots and see somebody frustrated they're not getting a parking space, and they look over and see me with this hat, and they just start laughing. So here we go. I'm going to have some more coffee, and I'm going to walk down to the bus stop with Jude, and he's getting his day going. So you guys have an awesome day. Thanks for hanging, and I'll see you next week. In the meantime, go on to YouTube, Midline Official Band, and check out Onward if you don't mind sharing that, subscribing to the channel, all that. That really does help the band, And we're constantly bombarded by our musician friends to like and follow, but it's a heartfelt thanks from all of those musicians. So have a great one. Oh, dang it. Tiffany Williams just joined in, and I haven't seen her talk to you in so long. I hope you're doing great. But Tiff, you can watch the replay. Hope you're doing amazing. John says, rest assured, Fred Fisher is one of the. Oh, thank you very much. Awesome. Thank you so much. Steve Alderetti, have a great day to you too, sir. And we'll catch all you guys later.